Hello ladies and gentlemen internet, my name is Benji Plays and welcome to this video. So today I'm going to be talking about the brand new Sony movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I've literally just came home from the cinema to see the film, and spoiler warning if you have not seen the movie yet, this is a genuine deep in review of the movie, so spoilers if you haven't seen the movie yet, go and see it for yourself. It is probably one of the best Spider-Man films I've ever seen for a while. Now, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I went into this movie with high hopes and great expectations, and it greatly gave me something better than the expectations. It blew my expectations out the pond, and honestly, I would go and see it again. It was probably a great in-depth analysis of, it's a great, I'm literally just lost for words on how great this movie was. We start off with our version of Peter Parker that we know, so like our original Spider-Man, Peter Parker. And turns out, I only found this out from the start of the movie, it is the Spider-Man from the Sam Raimi trilogy. And if you don't know what the Sam Raimi trilogy is literally the Spider-Man 1, 2 and 3 from 2002, 2004 and 2007. And yeah, we get to introduce to that Peter Parker. Like, obviously, okay, let's start from the bit. Like, we know the story of Spider-Man. It's been around for decades now, and it was probably again one of the greatest movies of all time. And most of the people in the cinema with me did laugh at one particular moment. It basically glosses over the original Sam Raimi trilogy, with the Spider-Man 2 scene where Peter's like holding on. He's like the train scene, and it points out one of the silliest Spider-Man tropes going in, and it's the scene where he gets taken over by the symbiote, and it's basically the dance scene from Spider-Man 3. If you don't know what it is, it's like that one. Like, if I'll add the music into it, it makes me look so ridiculous, but to manage to meet that, to make that into the film and animate it so it's exactly the same, but he's wearing the Spider-Man outfit, I couldn't stop laughing, honestly. I was like, oh my god, this is from Spider-Man 3. I just couldn't stop laughing after that. And again, with all the voice acting works, like the voice of Peter Parker, he was absolutely amazing. I think he's voiced by Jake Johnson, and he was a pretty good voice actor. His voice is like a genuine Peter Parker, but we are actually focusing on one character in the Spider-Man mythos who we haven't really seen. I mean, we've seen, if you've played the Spider-Man PS4 game, you'll know the character of Miles Morales, or if you read the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, it's Miles Morales' Spider-Man. Like, I think the voice actor for Miles Morales, I can't remember his name, he did amazingly well capturing the innocence and just overall coming into himself Miles Morales version of Spider-Man. Again, these are all from different universes. They are all explained in Marvel Comics, and the one thing that made this film great was making this movie feel like an actual comic book. Like, the animation style was perfect. We get just like if you look closely, and like you can see like the little dots from a comic book, and that's basically a normal Marvel comic, like how Stan Lee and all his other co-creators had done comic books, like from like the 60s and 70s, like the original Avenger comic books with Ant-Man and the Wasp. Just all these different characters or different tropes from comic books you could see. And you could see Wilson Fisk, who was also who is Kingpin. He looks like a fucking brick shithouse. And like, he is built. He is like, I wouldn't say he's a muscle, but he's a big dude. Like, he was broader. Like, his shoulders were basically like right angles, and Jesus Christ, like, I mean, I feel like his character was a little underdeveloped, and I know this video is going to go all over the place, me saying like all about these different, I'm going to keep going off on one, so I apologise for that if you're still watching this. Like, I think Miles is, like Wilson Fisk, in the movie it's revealed that he lost his wife and son from fighting Spider-Man, and no, Spider-Man didn't get them killed. Wilson Fisk technically got them killed, because in the flashback scene with Wilson Fisk's origin story, you can see that he is fighting Spider-Man on one of their classical fights, and his wife and son find him battling Spider-Man. His wife doesn't know who Wilson Fisk is anymore. They leave, they run away, and they get hit, like, their car gets hit by a truck in a, like, driving accident, which is depressing in itself. But when, like, we get, like, mainly at the start of the film, we get introduction to Miles Morales, his family life with his father and his mother, and just to know that, like Miles, like, he goes to a private school, and he doesn't want to be there. That is relatable on so many levels to certain people. I mean, for me, when I was younger, I had to move schools completely in middle school, and I hated it. And middle school and high school were probably the worst years of my life. So to see Miles not fitting in seemed relatable to others like myself. But I think I kind of related to Miles on a personal level as well, because we didn't like change. We didn't like going to a new place where you couldn't be yourself, and that is explained early on in the movie. Like, Miles passes his old middle school, and they say, "Oh, when are you come back? We miss you. When are you going to come back to our school?" And he's like, "Well, I still live here. I'm not gone." And that's perfect. It's solidifying the character even more. And the funny thing about this whole movie, it's basically a massive, yet again, I'm droning on about the same things again, but it feels like it's an actual genuine comic book movie, and it's perfect in just every way. And then later on, we meet the Peter Parker that Miles Morales, like, the Miles Morales is from one universe, and then we meet the Peter Parker of that universe, who gets killed by Kingpin. Sorry, but I think that definitely ties into Miles' origin story, because I remember looking up Miles Morales after the name was mentioned in, or I wouldn't say mentioned, but he was noted in Spider-Man Homecoming, and the scene in Spider-Man Homecoming is when Peter interrogates Aaron Davis, and if you don't know who Aaron Davis is, he is Miles Morales' uncle, and that was a brilliant time. I was like, wait, Aaron Davis, where have I heard that? I was literally thinking all this in the cinema. I was like, wait, he was in Spider-Man Homecoming, and then I realised the scene where, the interrogation scene from Spider-Man Homecoming, Aaron Davis says, I've got a nephew who lives here, who is Miles Morales, which is brilliant. That is a great scene, but it's just brilliant in every way. This movie is just, again, I'm probably going to keep repeating myself, it is just a brilliant film. But then later on, we meet all the different Peter Parkers. Like, there was the Peter Parker that mentors Spider-Man in a way is a much older, more, I would say depressed Peter Parker, because he lost in his time, and in his dimension, he's lost Aunt May, and him and MJ got divorced, which we've never seen in the Spider-Man movie. We always thought that Peter and MJ would end up together, and that's it. But then we meet Gwen Stacy, who is from another Spider universe, and probably the funniest, like, you could see the hints of a love interest between Gwen Stacy and Miles Morales in the film. You could see it. You could probably cut the tension with a knife, and it's amazing. Later on in the movie, we meet some of the other Spider people, who are Spider-Man Noir, who is brilliantly voice acted by Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is probably one of the funniest actors I've ever watched. He can go from serious to comedic like that, like, in a snap. And it's, like, seeing Nicolas Cage, like, he does the serious role. He was the dad of the superhero from Kick-Ass. That was like, he was like a play on Batman, and he can do it. He can work it perfectly. His voice, so dark and not like, I wouldn't say menacing, but like natural. Nicolas Cage can do it. He's a brilliant actor, but I'm still trying to think of scenes because I've literally just come home. I'm trying to remember all these scenes from the film. But we meet, that's Spider-Man Noir is voiced by Nicolas Cage. We meet Penny Parker, who is from 2332 or 3223. Can't remember, but that's the year she's from, and she's friends with the radioactive spider that gave her the powers, and she builds a robot which is basically a rip-off of futuristic manga. She's more like a Japanese, like, Kaya, and, like, Konnichiwa, and stuff like that, and that's what made it, like, she was, like, one of the youngest of the spider people, and I think, like, she may be, like, about 12, but she conveys such adultery, like, I wouldn't say, like, characteristics of an adult. And that is what made her perfect. And if you're still at this point in the video, spoilers, her robot dies, and that was depressing enough as it is. And that did convey a lot of emotion for me, like, a robot is as good. But then it kind of reminded me of Iron Man. In Iron Man 3, Tony Stark does all these things, and he learns that he is not the Spider-Man. He's not the Spider-Man with the suit. He is Spider-Man without the suit. And I feel like that's what's portrayed onto Penny. She is the Spider-Man of her time without her suit. She presses on, and that's what made it so good. And the one funniest Spider-Man has to be Spider-Ham, aka Peter Porker, which probably did remind me of the pig from the Simpsons movie. If you don't, like, from the Simpsons movie, it's like, Spider-Pig does whatever a Spider-Pig does. And that's what it reminded me of. But again, like, the animation styles for Spider-Man Noir, Gwen Stacy's Spider-Woman or Spider-Gwen, Peter Parker from the other, like, the mentor Peter Parker, Penny Parker, like, all that animation styles is different, and Sony Animation, by God, you did a good job with this movie, and you could see that all the different animations belong to these spider people, and I would love to see different adventures with Spider-Man Noir in 1939, Penny Parker in the future, and definitely Spider-Ham, because he's so cartoony and it's so funny. And they do mention this later on in the film. They also include the villains, the Prowler, Scorpion, Kingpin, and I can't remember the last one. Also, they include a female Doc Ock, which definitely confused me. And you can see the tropes that come with it. It's like, I'm Olivia Octavius. Like, that's the female version of Doc Ock from Miles's universe, or Miles's dimension, as it were. And again, the Spider-Man just goes, oh, so I guess your friends call you Doc Ock, because she has the four, she has the 4 arms, or was it 6? It was a 4 or 6 arms, and she goes, no, my friends call me Liv, but my enemies call me Doc Ock. And that's what made it funny, because everyone's like, oh, you've got these 4 arms, you're obviously Doc Ock. No, she does have a life outside villainy. That's a funny superhero trope, because, like, say if the Joker, like, hit Harley Quinn, or take Harley Quinn for example, like, Harleen Quinzel, her real name is Harleen Quinzel, and people would probably call her Harley. You gotta understand, people would call her Harley, not Harleen. So definitely, like, again, this movie does take a lot of superhero tropes from the Spider-Man mythos and definitely makes them a lot more funny. Definitely. But I think all these, like, spider people, like, originally Miles can't tap into his powers, and I think it was the perfect scene when his dad comes to knock on his door, but obviously he's been tied up and can't speak by Peter when they go to destroy the Hadron Collider that Fisk has done, or Kingpin. And it's when he talks like, look, I don't want us to grow apart, because obviously at this point in the movie, the Prowler is dead. Aaron Davis, like, they find out who each other are. Like, Aaron Davis finds out that Miles is Spider-Man, and that Miles finds out that his uncle is a supervillain working for the Kingpin. And it's the family. I feel like there's an element, like, theme of family in this movie, and it works perfectly. Like, all the Spider people come together, and when Miles finally taps into his power, believing, like, that is a leap of faith, as Peter Parker would say, and it made it so good. It made it amazing. But then, obviously, the villain is defeated. Fisk says, look, I can easily kill another Spider-Man, because obviously Miles has only been Spider-Man for, like, a day in the movie time, and you gotta think, so much happens in just a few days. Like, there is no, like, training montage to go up against the Kingpin. It's all in one day, and Miles, obviously Peter has to get home to his dimension, but obviously he can't teach Miles the ropes of being Spider-Man, because there are so many different ways of going about it. But eventually they succeed in the mission. They're ready to send all the Peter Parkers home. They all say their goodbyes, and Nicolas Cage gives me one of the funniest dialogues in the movie. Throughout the film, or when they're at Aunt May's house, they find, like, he has a Rubik's Cube, and he's like, I'm gonna take this and figure it out. No one, like, if you know what a Rubik's Cube is, like, I'm assuming like 99% of you know what a Rubik's Cube is. Rubik's Cube. Like, obviously you know what a Rubik's Cube is, and they just do it perfectly. Like, he's like, I'm going to take this back to my dimension, in the dimension of black and white, and show this colour thing to my dimension. And I'm going to unveil it to my people in my dimension and figure it out. Eventually he does figure out the Rubik's Cube, which is funny. But then again, Miles does defeat the Kingpin without Spider-Man's help. They all go back to their dimensions. Everything is fine. But then we see at the end, there's like a montage, like, Miles becoming Spider-Man sorted him out, because Miles didn't want to be at that posh school. He left. He was trying to get them to say, look, we can't have you here. We don't want you here, essentially. And it works so well. It just does. It works. Like, again, this movie is like, the pacing was perfect. The animation was on point. The characters got all their development, even though I think Wilson Fisk's Kingpin was a little underdeveloped. Like, yeah, we got a quick origin story for him, and that was it, which is a bit sad, to be honest. Because, I mean, well, that's how it is. Because if you keep characterising these characters, you're going to lose focus on what the story is about. And I feel like, yes, we kind of know the story of Wilson Fisk, but again, there are some aspects that are good. Like, most of the aspects of this movie were good, but some were pretty bad. But I loved the ending, and there was a quote, like, obviously I was waiting for the post-credit stinger, as Marvel movies do, and there was a quote from Stan Lee during the, like, where the mid-credits was supposed to be, and probably it had a quote from Stan Lee, and it was a brilliant quote from Stan Lee, and it's like, at the end it says, "You are the superhero," and that honestly got to me, because Stan Lee was a god to most of us. He made people smile. His work was loved by millions, and he had some of the funniest things in the MCU. And speaking of Stan Lee, there was a Stan Lee cameo in this movie. Thank Christ there was a Stan Lee cameo in this movie, because I was kind of worried, like, after Stan Lee's death earlier this year, I wouldn't say earlier this year, I'd say in early to mid-November, we knew Stan Lee had died, and I spent the next... I still am trying to get over it now, but I didn't upload for 2 weeks because I was still trying to concept the fact that one of the greatest legends of the 21st century had gone. And it was depressing. It was upsetting. It was all the saddest things that I could possibly convey. And Stan Lee, to me, was like an icon. He revolutionized the comic book industry, but he actually had a post-credit scene in the movie when Miles Morales buys a Spider-Man suit after Peter Parker died, and he says, we were good friends, or we were good friends. And that was perfectly given, because obviously Stan Lee made Peter Parker. He introduced the whole world and generations to Spider-Man, and it was perfect. Oh god, just thinking of Stan Lee now is just getting me a bit depressed. I'm not saying depressed, that's bad. It upsets me to know that he's gone. But Stan Lee will be missed. Always rest in peace, Stan Lee. I hope you got to see your work. I hope you got to see this movie before you passed away. I feel like that's very unlikely, but thank you, Stan Lee, for making this universe possible and inspiring billions. But the real, I know this whole movie has been a nod to Spider-Man Mentos, and it made it even funnier. The post-credit scene, there is a so-called, a version of the Spider-Man. I can't remember which Spider-Man, but they say, which universe we're going to go first. That makes us, the viewer, think, oh, there's going to be a sequel. There's going to be the Spider-Man going to be tearing up all the different universes and perfecting multiverse movement, transportation. Is there going to be a way to transport through different parts of the multiverse? And and he says, let's go to Earth 67. And it's the animated Spider-Man from the 70s, I think. Or the really, really early Spider-Man does what it... the really campy 60s version of animated Spider-Man. And holy crap, did they pull it off. They got, it was squared based. Obviously, they couldn't make it full 1080. It was more 6 by... a different aspect ratio, and it worked. It brilliantly worked. So that is brilliant to know that was in there. And also, again, with the introduction of Peter Parker, is I've also done some cartoons, and they included the original theme from Spider-Man. The 1960 version was perfect, because it's a great big nostalgia for us hardcore Spider-Man fans. And it's, again, this movie is just perfect through and throughout. I might even go and see it again tomorrow if I'm bothered, because it worked so well. It works so well. So, thank you to Sony Animation for making this movie. Thank you to all the incredible voice actors who made this movie brilliant. But again, this is the end of my long-ass review of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. There was just so many good things about it, but unfortunately, I think that, the one complaint I have was Fisk. His backstory just, obviously, if you watch Daredevil, Wilson Fisk is in there. His interpretation of the Kingpin. I don't know who he's played by. I've never actually watched Daredevil. I should really look into that, but who knows. But I know they cancelled it, which sucks. But I might look into... because obviously, the only Kingpin I've really seen was when playing the Spider-Man PS4 game and this movie. And I feel again, the Peter Parker's was perfect, especially Miles Morales' Peter Parker with all the Spider-Man suits, which, again, if you look closely, some of the suits from Spider-Man PS4 were in that movie. The suit displayed in the game with, the white knuckle bit, the white actual spider on the suit. Again, there's just all these little Easter eggs and noticeable Easter eggs, and it's perfect. So, again, I have to give this film a solid 9.5 out of 10. So, yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and a comment in the comment section below. Please subscribe if you haven't done already. We're on the road to 5k subs. Let's hit that target. Let's smash our goal. Don't forget to share around on all sorts of social media. And don't forget to stay awesome, guys. And just for you, I'm going to end this video with a nice bit of Peter Parker Spider-Man 3.
Everybody, somebody, that motor soul. Get up!
There you go, Spider-Man 3. I'll see you in the next video.